The Correctional Services Minister, Pieter Groenewald, says government is spending over 11 million rand a day on foreign nationals serving jail time in the country. On Tuesday, Groenewald told the Portfolio Committee in Parliament that more than 24,000 foreign inmates are currently in the system, costing taxpayers around 463 rand per inmate per day. The minister is calling for these prisoners to serve their sentences in their countries of origin and wants the Department of Home Affairs to assist with deportations, especially for parolees. To unpack these issues and more, I'm joined now by the Minister, Minister Pieter Groenewald. Minister, good afternoon. Thank you for your time. So part of what you were talking to in your budget vote had to do with the system in its entirety, and an element of that is obviously overcrowding. But you then zoned in on the element of overcrowding that you're saying has foreign national population in the prison system as an element. Just explain to us the extent of that particular element.
To give that perspective, I want to start saying that we have just over 104,000 sentenced inmates in our facilities, but we have 60,000 remandees. We have 108,000 beds. So we can accommodate the sentenced prisoners, but of those totals, there are 25,000 foreigners, which about 2,500 of them are detainees that are awaiting trial. Now, our problem is as follows, that in terms of legislation, the moment a court has sentenced a person, it determines that correctional services must accommodate that person. So we are already in talks with the Department of Justice and in the JCPS cluster, firstly, to see that we have some amendments to the legislation. And we're already also in conversation specifically with our neighbor countries to allow and to have a memorandum of understanding that we can then send people that has been sentenced back to their country of origin. If you have normal contraventions in terms of the Home Affairs legislation being illegal in South Africa, then the Department of Home Affairs can act to that. But specifically when it comes to people already sentenced, we have to deal with that problem.
Minister, just as we're being joined by the Chairperson of the Portfolio Committee on Correctional Services, Kgomotso Anthea Ramolobeng, I'll turn to you in just a moment, ma'am, but let me stick with you for a moment, Minister. The suggestion that prisoners, offenders sentenced here in South Africa through some arrangement with neighboring countries can serve their sentence in those neighboring countries, is that a system that you foresee working? Can it really work? Can we trust the systems in all of the countries from which we receive foreign nationals to adhere to the sentencing regimes, the effectiveness of those effecting regimes from our country?
Yes, I think it can work. When it comes to lifers, the minister must approve or not approve, for instance, parole. I already approved 5 foreigners for parole, and we immediately had a court order for deportation to the countries of origin. So it can work. I know people say there's no use sending them back to their countries because in 2 or 3 days they are back in South Africa. We must not be sidelined by those sort of allegations. Can I say entry into South Africa is tightened by Home Affairs, the police services and other agencies. So I say at least we must try, because remember it is costing, as you've mentioned, 463 rand per day per prisoner. So the foreigners in our facilities is costing the taxpayer more than 11 million rand per day. So I am of the opinion that we must continue And I do believe in the end it will have a positive effect.
Yeah. Chairperson of the Portfolio Committee, Kgomotso Ramolobeng, as I welcome you into the conversation, just your own reflections on what you heard from the Minister during the budget vote as it relates to the pressures on the system, the prison population, the foreign national element within that population, but also the pressure brought on by the long awaiting trial times within the system. Where do the solutions lie from what you heard from the Minister as well as your own thinking?
Thank you so much for having me, and good afternoon to the Minister and the viewers at home. Look, from what the Minister would have echoed in the budget vote debate, this is part of the sentiments or the Portfolio Committee's recommendation that it had said in January or the first week of February when we met with the department, echoing that we would want Correctional Service Act, one of the section, which is subsection 1 and 2, to be amended. That speaks to the sentence and the form of those who are incarcerated in correctional service. And this speaking to it particularly with regards to foreign nationals, because what the department does is that once it receives from the courts those who they must incarcerate, have in their facilities, they can't release them up until their minimum detention of release. And that means if we enter into discussions with Home Affairs on deportation of foreign nationals, they can't be handed over to Home Affairs up until their sentence has been served. Hence, we wanted that amendment process so that when then there is those discussion that the Minister has alluded to right now when I was listening with Home Affairs, then it becomes easy on the side of the Correctional Service Act that guides the department on how it should operate in the department. So we do welcome that because we have been echoing that as the Portfolio Committee, and those has been our major core function in trying to assist the department to mitigate its current challenges, especially towards overcrowding.
Minister, let me come back to you and suggest to you that you will continue to face these problems for as long as it takes so long for a person to firstly appear and stand trial before a judicial officer, magistrate, a judge. For as long as it takes, as long as it does now, you will have this problem of awaiting trial detainees. And I suggest to you that's a big part of your problem. I seem to recall that a few years ago there was some momentum around dealing differently with awaiting trial prisoners, which included, of course, that change in the uniform that they wear, the prison clothes that they wear to mark them as people who are not sentenced yet. But I think that momentum has been lost and that system is just clogged up and it creates problems for you.
Well, the fact that you say that the system is clogged up, it is true. We must remember that we are part of the criminal justice system as such. I am on record where I said, the moment the police becomes more effective, which they are at the moment, they make more arrests. But then we have a problem, and the clogging up is with the Department of Justice. And as I said, we have 60,000 remand detainees, and I've mentioned the number of foreigners now, but 60,000. And there are ways. We can go, for instance, back to court because we have a problem with that in terms of we have 2,530 of the remand detainees who couldn't afford bail of 1,000 rand and less. But they're now in our system. If we go back to court, there is a procedure where you can request a revising or a revision on that bail, but the success rate is very low. It's around about 3%. So our courts, they have some views on that. I already mentioned it in the JCPS cluster. I spoke to the Minister of Justice, and we must see how we can speed up that system. But now we know that the Justice Department also has some financial constraints. They have a huge backlog. And yes, we must continue trying to see how we can solve these problems.
Yeah.
And we will continue with that.
All right, let me take a quick call from one of our viewers, Soli in Rustenburg. Good afternoon, Soli. You have a question or a comment for my guests this afternoon?
Yes, good afternoon, sir. My name is Soli from Rustenburg. My concern is that, the government is spending a lot of money on this foreign nationals in our prisons now. And secondly, what are we doing as a government now?
All right, thank you for that straight and to the point there question from Soli. Chairperson, let me come back to you and ask you and relay that question that says, what are we doing in cooperative governance, in collaborating with other committees that oversee justice, home affairs and the likes? Where do the solutions lie in response to the question that is raised by Soli in Rustenburg?
Thank you so much, Soli, for the question. As part of our work doing oversight to the Department of Correctional Service, including those sister departments that cut across the department, we have taken a decision as the Portfolio Committee to invite the Minister of Justice and Constitutional Development to talk to what the Minister was into, the Section 49G, which are referrals to court, which Minister would have made an emphasis that the success rate of that is 3%, to talk to it, and also those who are waiting trial for more than a year or 2 years, who are incarcerated in correctional facilities or remanded in correctional facilities. So a letter to the Minister of Justice and the department has been released from our side, and I think it was on the first week of June. So we're waiting a date from the minister. When is she available and her team to appear before the Portfolio Committee to be able to talk to these matters on the justice systems? And this we have done because we have understood that the department has been having frustrations on the justice system with those who are waiting trial for more than a year and 2 years, and they can't do anything about it. Theirs is to receive what the courts ordered them to receive. If the justice system says Kgomotso Ramolobeng must be remanded in a correctional facility A and B, they must receive Kgomotso and prepare a bed for Kgomotso and start to plan or to budget around Kgomotso's stays or well-being in a correctional facility.
All right.
So we have taken that initiative. That's the first one. The second one, we have taken another initiative with the Department of Public Works on issues of infrastructure, because we have dilapidated correctional facilities. We have non-functional kitchens or ports. We have done an invite to the Department of Public Works through the Minister, whom has indicated his availability and the department to appear before the Portfolio Committee to talk to that. We in future going to invite the Department of Health on state patients that are incarcerated in correctional facilities. So we are taking initiatives to talk to some of these ailing matters that are facing the department, either overcrowding or infrastructural issues, so that we also, on our end as the Portfolio Committee, we don't get to be a committee that just makes noise, but comes up with initiative to assist the department in dealing with their issues.
Minister, before I wrap up this conversation, let me draw you directly into two controversies. The first one, you are quoted as having said that we should revisit the issue of corporal punishment, especially for offenders who have committed crimes. You're not serious, are you?
You said we are not?
I'm asking, you are not serious about this suggestion, are you? Surely not?
Yes, I did say that, if I hear you correctly. I said we must open the debate. There's no decision taken. I said we must open the debate, and I refer specifically to that category of people who couldn't afford 1,000 rand and less bail, and to see if that is an alternative. But you must see that as a small piece in the puzzle and the bigger puzzle of overcrowding. So it is only referring to the correctional services issue. And I know it is a controversial matter, but if I look at the responses on social media, there is overwhelming support to the matter. And of course, it will have got to go through a process. It will have to have amendments in legislation. But I said, let's open the debate to do that. But again, It's only for correctional services. I do not refer to schools or any other institution.
But here's the problem, though, Minister. It's simply not compatible with our Constitution as it stands. So if I hear you correctly, you would want the Constitution to be amended to deal with all the bases on which this was outlawed, including human dignity, freedom from violence from private and public sources. It's as if the jurisprudence of the last 30 years has not happened that we are having this debate.
Okay, firstly, I want to say a constitution is not a solid matter of a rock that cannot be changed. If it's necessary and if it is viable, we do so. But let me say this on human rights and everything that goes with that. I personally think it is more to have specifically youngsters, petty crimes like shoplifting, to awaiting trial in a prison or separated from other already sentenced prisoners. I think, and if you know and can imagine what happens in overcrowded cells where they are a young person and the barbaric actions is taking place there, then we must make a balanced, objective decision. But it is a process, I say again. And if the people of South Africa feel that it is a solution and it is viable, then and it requires certain amendments, we can do so. But remember, it is a sentence. I also said the precondition is that it must be a sentence by a court of law, and it must be under strict supervision of senior officials.
And the last one, the last controversy I have to draw you in on, Minister, has to do with the recent reporting that suggests that the killer of Constable Francis Rasuche, William Mkuna, may be up for parole and consideration. He's a lifer, and therefore that would come before you. What is your understanding of where that process stands at the moment? Is he or is he not up for parole?
Well, firstly, you must remember each and every lifer after 25 years, also depending when he or she was sentenced, and come forward and is for consideration of parole. I'm not going to discuss this specific matter, but I will give you my general view when it comes to lifers. Yes, I have a proper profile and file of everything. Then I also look at the psychologist reports as well as the criminologist reports. And what is important to me is to ensure what is the risk of reoffending of that specific application in front of me. And if the risk of reoffending is mild to high, then I can assure you that I will not approve, because we have a duty to protect society against reoffending by criminals. So that is my approach when it comes to parole for lifers. I didn't receive this specific one on my desk yet, so that will depend on an objective, merit-based decision.
All right. I've got to thank you for your time and your indulgence. That's Dr. Pieter Groenewald, who is the Minister of Correctional Services. And of course, we were also joined by the Chairperson of the Portfolio Committee on Correctional Services, Kgomotso Anthea Ramolobeng.